You think this bank is for poor people? Dream on. The sharp, scornful words echoed across the packed banking hall. An elderly woman was humiliated in front of everyone, just for questioning a few strange charges on her account. But no one knew the black man was hiding beneath a black cap standing silently behind her was actually the billionaire who owns the entire bank. And just minutes later, he shook the entire institution to its core with a truth no one dared to speak, forcing two employees to fall to their knees and apologize in front of the crowd. On that afternoon in a bustling bank branch, the bank was crowded. Long lines and murmurs of complaints created a tense atmosphere. Employees rushed back and forth, trying to manage the chaos, while impatient customers alternated between glancing at their watches and quietly voicing their frustrations. Amidst it all, Evelyn Carter, an elderly woman, waited nervously. She clutched an envelope, her fingers slightly trembling. Evelyn had come seeking answers. What seemed like a simple mistake in her account was, for her, a matter of survival. But Evelyn was about to face something far greater than just bureaucracy. Evelyn finally took a step forward, approaching one of the service counters. She adjusted her coat, trying to appear confident, but her expression betrayed a hint of unease. "I hope they can sort this out today," she murmured to herself, glancing at the envelope with worry. Meanwhile, one of the bank employees, Brent Wallace, walked through the room. He cast quick glances at the customers and, without saying a word, seemed to prioritize only those who appeared to have greater financial means. For Brent Wallace, some issues seemed more important than others. Evelyn, with her worn-out envelope, was far from his priority that day. Evelyn hesitated for a moment, looking around. She approached the counter and, before speaking, took a deep breath, as if she knew she'd need strength to be heard. Evelyn didn't know it, but that afternoon would be unlike any other. Her attempt to be heard would lead to a moment of great humiliation. But the unexpected was on its way. Evelyn approached the service counter. The teller, Chloe Adams, a young woman with a tired and impatient expression, glanced up briefly before continuing to type on her computer. "Good afternoon, ma'am. How can I help you?" Chloe asked, not taking her eyes off the screen. Evelyn adjusted the envelope in her hands and took a deep breath. "Good afternoon. I'm here because my account has some charges that I believe are incorrect. I brought everything I could to try to understand." Chloe finally looked at Evelyn, but her gaze was indifferent. She took the envelope mechanically and began flipping through it with little effort. "Let's see. Here it is. These charges are standard, ma'am. They're all listed in your account agreement," Chloe said, pushing the envelope back toward Evelyn. Visibly unsettled, Evelyn tried to explain. "But I can't afford these fees. This must be a mistake. I was never informed about these charges." Chloe sighed and rolled her eyes, drawing the attention of a few people nearby. "Ma'am, maybe you don't understand how things work these days. Banks have policies, and these fees are automatic." "There's nothing I can do," Chloe responded with a tone dripping with disdain. Evelyn felt belittled. That response not only dismissed her problem but also made her feel incompetent. She tried to hold back the tears threatening to fall. Evelyn whispered, "I just want what's fair." Chloe crossed her arms and smirked slightly, as if she were in control of the situation. "Fair, ma'am? If you want to avoid fees, you need to keep more money in your account. That's how it works." The public humiliation had begun. Customers nearby whispered among themselves, and Evelyn could feel the weight of their stares. Still, she tried to maintain her composure. "It can't be like this. I just want to better understand what happened," Evelyn said, her voice trembling. Brent Wallace was about to make things worse for Evelyn. But what he didn't know was that someone unexpected was already watching everything. Brent Wallace, the manager, walked toward the counter with firm steps. His presence commanded attention, and Chloe immediately straightened her posture, as if trying to appear more efficient. "Is there a problem here?" Brent asked, crossing his arms and casting a quick glance at Evelyn before focusing on Chloe. Chloe smiled nervously. "No, sir. Just a customer having trouble understanding the account policies." Evelyn, already visibly uncomfortable, tried to interject. "That's not it. I believe there's been a mistake with my account. I'm just trying to get it resolved." Brent raised his hand, cutting her off. Ma'am, if you think there's been a mistake, you should have read the contract before opening your account. Everything is very clear for those who pay attention. Evelyn stood silent for a moment, surprised by Brent's harsh tone. She took a deep breath before responding. I've always kept my account in good standing. These charges appeared out of nowhere. All I'm asking is for someone to review them. Brent let out a brief, almost mocking laugh. Review? Ma'am, what's in the system is in the system. We don't review something that's automatic. Evelyn felt the weight of the humiliation deepen. It wasn't just the coldness of the words, but the way Brent spoke, as if she had no worth at all. Evelyn looked around, searching for a supportive glance among the customers, but she found only indifference. Some avoided her gaze, while others whispered among themselves. Brent leaned slightly over the counter, looking directly at Evelyn. If you can't afford the fees, maybe this bank isn't the right place for you. Evelyn opened her mouth to respond, but indignation and shame made it hard to find the words. She looked down at the envelope in her hands, feeling utterly defeated. Brent seemed to consider the discussion over. To him, Evelyn was nothing more than an inconvenient customer. But at that moment, something unexpected happened. From across the bank, a discreet figure dressed in a casual jacket and a baseball cap had been watching everything attentively. He began to approach slowly, not drawing attention immediately. When he heard Brent's words, he decided to step in. A calm and firm voice cut through the room. Why are you speaking to her like that? The entire bank fell silent. I turned to the figure who had spoken. The man who had just intervened seemed ordinary at first glance, but within seconds, everyone would realize he was anything but ordinary. The atmosphere in the bank was completely still. All eyes turned to the man wearing an old moss green shirt jacket and a black cap. He seemed ordinary at first, but there was something about the firmness in his voice and the way he carried himself that captivated everyone's attention. Evelyn looked at the man, surprised by the intervention. Brent Wallace turned slowly, clearly irritated by the interruption. And who are you to question what's happening here? Brent said, crossing his arms and furrowing his brow. The man took a few steps forward, slowly removing his cap. When his face was finally revealed, a murmur spread throughout the room. Malcolm maintained his calm demeanor, but his eyes were locked on Brent. It doesn't matter who I am, Malcolm said in a serious but controlled tone. What matters is why you're treating this lady like this. Evelyn was even more shocked. She looked at Malcolm, almost unable to believe that someone like him was standing there defending her. Brent took a deep breath, trying to maintain his composure. Mr. Reed, I had no idea you were here. But look, this is none of your business. We have policies at this bank, and this lady isn't meeting the requirements. Malcolm gave a faint, ironic smile. Policies? He asked, tilting his head slightly. Or an excuse to humiliate someone who's just trying to solve a problem? Malcolm's presence was magnetic. Even Chloe, who had seemed confident earlier, now glanced nervously at Brent, waiting for him to say something to justify the situation. Malcolm turned to Evelyn, speaking in a softer tone. Ma'am, what exactly is the problem? Can you show me what's going on? Evelyn hesitated, but handed the envelope to Malcolm. He took it carefully and began examining the documents inside. After a few seconds, he looked up at Brent. This is a mistake, Malcolm stated. These charges shouldn't be here. You're going to fix this right now. Brent attempted to argue, but Malcolm raised his hand, cutting him off. If this is a mistake, you'll fix it. And if it's not, it's going to be much worse for you. The bank was in shock. No one had expected someone like Malcolm Reed to step in so directly. But he wasn't finished yet. Malcolm placed the envelope on the counter, fixing Brent with a firm gaze. I want you to review this immediately, and I'm not leaving until everything is resolved. Brent was speechless. But what he didn't know was that Malcolm was just beginning to connect the dots to something much bigger than just an error in Evelyn's account. Brent Wallace, visibly uncomfortable, adjusted the collar of his shirt and shot a tense glance at Chloe. She looked just as lost as he did, unsure of what to say. But Malcolm wasn't about to wait. He leaned slightly over the counter, maintaining his signature calm demeanor. We're not just talking about a simple mistake here, are we? We're talking about how you're treating a customer who deserves respect. and from what I've seen, that's clearly lacking here. Chloe tried to break the silence, her voice trembling slightly. Mr. Reed, maybe you don't understand how the system works. We follow strict guidelines. Malcolm raised his hand again, cutting her off politely but firmly. Strict guidelines? He asked. I understand enough to know these fees are completely arbitrary, and I also know you have the autonomy to correct them. Evelyn, standing beside him, clasped her hands together, still in disbelief over what was unfolding. Malcolm looked at her, offering a reassuring smile. Don't worry, we're going to sort this out. The entire bank was watching the scene unfold, with both customers and staff in complete silence. Everyone waited to see what would happen next. Malcolm took the envelope back and showed the papers to Brent. These statements, he said, holding up the documents, the charges started 2 months ago. Correct? Malcolm looked at Evelyn, who nodded. Yes, she replied softly. Malcolm turned back to Brent. Then tell me, why did these maintenance fees triple? Because it doesn't look like there's any legitimate reason here. Brent started to speak, but Malcolm interrupted him again. You might want to think carefully about your answer, because if this is something bigger than a mistake, you and everyone here are going to have a much bigger problem on your hands. The tension was palpable. The employees who had previously seemed indifferent now looked visibly nervous. Brent knew he couldn't keep dodging the situation. He swallowed hard and stepped back. I'll need to review this in the system, he stammered. Malcolm crossed his arms, staring firmly at Brent. Then start. Now. Evelyn watched, still astonished, as Brent rushed to the computer and began typing frantically. Chloe tried to keep up, but she was clearly panicking. As Brent reviewed the account, Malcolm remained steadfast by Evelyn's side. What had initially seemed like a simple mistake was beginning to reveal something much deeper. Brent stood up from his chair, visibly sweating. Mr. Reed, there's something wrong here, he said hesitantly. Malcolm leaned in slightly. Wrong how? Brent glanced at Evelyn, then back at Malcolm before finally admitting. It looks like these charges were applied to multiple accounts, mostly belonging to elderly customers. The room grew even quieter. Malcolm slowly shook his head. That's not a mistake. That's a scheme. Evelyn wasn't the only victim, and Malcolm knew he was just starting to uncover the scope of this issue. He was about to expose something far bigger than he had imagined. Brent, now in full panic mode, desperately searched for a way out, but there was no escape. Brent Wallace was visibly shaken. He fidgeted nervously with his tie as he tried to explain the situation to Malcolm, who didn't break eye contact, maintaining his firm stance. Mr. Reed, I swear this was a system error, Brent stammered, his voice trembling. It's not something we did on purpose. Malcolm narrowed his eyes, crossing his arms. A system error? How convenient. Why do these errors only affect elderly accounts? Do you think we wouldn't notice? Evelyn looked at Brent, her indignation clear. She finally mustered the courage to speak. So I'm not the only one? How many people have you cheated? It was clear to everyone in the bank that Brent didn't have a convincing explanation. Chloe, standing beside him, looked even more nervous, as if she knew something bigger was about to come to light. Brent tried to respond, but his voice faltered. I'll investigate this. I need more time to figure it out. Malcolm stepped forward, placing his hands on the counter. You've had enough time. Now you're going to tell the truth. He turned to Brent, who was now visibly panicking. How many people have been affected by this? Tell the truth. Brent swallowed hard and glanced at Chloe, who quickly averted her eyes. I'm not sure. Maybe hundreds. Brent's confession landed like a bombshell. It wasn't just Evelyn. There were countless other victims. Malcolm knew he had to take action. He pulled out his phone and began recording a video. What you're hearing is a bank manager admitting that his bank has been charging elderly customers unjust fees to boost profits, he said, pointing the camera at Brent and Chloe. This is unacceptable, and we're going to make sure everyone knows what's happening here. Brent raised his hands, desperate. Wait, Please, don't do that. We can fix this. I can fix it right now. Malcolm lowered the phone slightly, but his tone remained firm. Fix it. This isn't just about returning the money. This is about justice. Do you think an apology is enough? Brent looked at Malcolm, sweat dripping from his brow. What do you want from me? Malcolm leaned in slightly, locking eyes with him. I want you to make this right for every single person who was affected. And I want the authorities to know exactly what happened here. In that moment, Brent realized there was no way out. He nodded, resigned, as Malcolm stood firm, determined to ensure everyone received the respect and justice they deserved. Hours later, the bank released an official statement announcing radical changes. Brent and Chloe were removed from their positions, and a full audit was initiated to identify all accounts affected by the unjust fees. Evelyn, standing beside Malcolm, received more than just an apology. She was reimbursed for all her lost money, along with additional compensation for the hardships she had faced. Mrs. Carter, on behalf of the bank, we sincerely apologize for this terrible situation. We are committed to correcting this immediately, said a visibly embarrassed bank representative. Evelyn looked at Malcolm, tears welling in her eyes. I never could have done this alone. Thank you for believing in me. Malcolm offered a small smile. You should never have gone through this. But now, it's not just about you. We're helping so many others who were wronged too. As Evelyn left the bank, she seemed different. Still humble, but with a renewed spark of hope in her eyes. Malcolm, standing beside her, glanced at the other customers waiting in silence, clearly moved by what they had just witnessed. Malcolm turned to the crowd and spoke with clarity. Never let anyone tell you that you're worth less. Whether you're elderly, young, wealthy, or struggling, everyone deserves respect. And most importantly, never be afraid to fight for what's right. His words echoed through the room, earning applause from customers who had initially seemed indifferent. He gave Evelyn a discreet wave goodbye and walked out of the bank, leaving behind a lesson no one would soon forget. A few days later, the video of Malcolm exposing the bank scheme went viral, garnering millions of views. Not only did the bank face a thorough investigation, but many victims began recovering their lost savings. Evelyn's story became more than just a call for justice. It became a symbol of hope for many. Respect and justice should be the only rules we follow. May this story inspire you to act with courage and empathy wherever you are. Did this story move you? Share it so more people can feel inspired. And comment, respect is for everyone, to join this wave of humanity.